All right, it's so great to be back here. This is Amanda Elowesh. You are tuned in to Inalienable Sovereignty Conversations for Elevation. And I am really happy, excited to have with me today Kathleen Joan. And I'm going to let you just introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are, and we will dive into some juicy conversation.
Yay. Well, hello, Amanda. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. Yeah, as you said, my name is Kathleen Joan. I am a priestess of Bridget. Bridget is both an ancient Celtic pagan goddess and a Christian saint. And my work centers around divine feminine and helping particularly people raised with patriarchal religion to reclaim our sacredness by connecting with the divine feminine. And I think when we do that, we can become part of her return. We become part of her rising in today's world. So that's kind of my mission. That's what I'm all about. And some ways that I do that are a lot of women's circles, retreats, and then also with all genders, I offer spiritual direction, one-to-one spiritual direction, and Reiki energy healing.
Beautiful. So much
Mhm.
alignment. And you were talking a little bit right before we came on over here to the Facebook Live. You were sharing some excitement about Reiki, which is very familiar and near and dear to me. And I'd love for you to dive in and share. I think a lot of people have probably heard, but maybe you could
Mhm.
share a little bit about what it is and why is that so exciting to you right now?
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. So for those who aren't familiar, Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing. The word Reiki is actually two words in Japanese. So ki is a life force energy. It's the life energy that animates our bodies and our energy field and everything in the world, right? And Rei actually means divinely guided or spiritually guided. So it's spiritually guided life force energy. And what that means is when you're receiving Reiki, you're receiving this channeled energy. It doesn't come from the practitioner, it comes from source, right? From sacred source, from the divine. And it's being channeled through the practitioner to people who are receiving it. And, it can bring about a lot of healing on a lot of levels, physical healing, mental healing, emotional, energetic balance, right? A lot of times people just feel really relaxed and are able to drop in and be present when they're receiving Reiki. So I thought that was like a really appropriate topic for our conversation today, because I know we're talking about these mystical yet real life kind of experiences and encounters, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad that you're bringing it because I did Reiki. I can't remember what they call it, but I had the Reiki training and initiation, and I found it really helpful because I had hands-on healing energies flowing through, but nobody taught me really how to work with it. And so Reiki
Mm-hmm.
was such a powerful structure to learn how to work with it in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm curious, how does that tie in to you with inalienable sovereignty? How do they go together?
Ooh, that's such a great question. Um, I think with sovereignty, that is an amazing question because Reiki, it's this direct experience, right, of an energy that comes from beyond us. And I will say, like, I was not working with energy before I was initiated into Reiki. I mean, maybe I was unconsciously, but I was not, consciously manipulating. And I might have even questioned the reality or the validity of people who are like, oh, I can manipulate unseen energy. Like, how does that work, right? I just hadn't been exposed to that too much. But when I attended, I started going to some Reiki shares because a friend invited me, and I felt the energy, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. I want to learn how to do this. And what happened for me after I did the training and was initiated was I just had this really cool moment of, like, many moments, right? But moments of noticing, now that I've been initiated and I've been attuned to Reiki, whenever I call it in, anytime I ask for Reiki to flow, right? Because it's not my energy, it's this energy that's coming from somewhere else. Anytime I ask for it to flow, it does. And that didn't happen before I was initiated,
Mm.
right? So, like, there was this, like, something really tangible. Like you feel that I feel tingles in my hands. Some people feel Reiki in a lot of different ways, but you can feel it, you can sense it, you notice the effects, right? And it happens because of our intention. It happens because we ask for it and we call it in, and it happens every time. And it's this really amazing, like, it's not like the stars have to align perfectly, or, Mercury has to be direct, or like any, the weather has to be right. Like there's no, it's not kind of this, oh, I hope this works. I hope I'm calling on divine energy and I hope it works, right? It's like right there for us every time. And so to me, that is this incredible experience of like how, first of all, the power of our intention, right? The power of when we call on divine energy, divine help, it shows up. Like, not that we're making it, but that we have the power to call it in and be open to it and to receive it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And my understanding of Reiki is, that we're asking that energy to come in, but what it does, what it does to the person receiving, it's like we have no
mhm,
control over that. And it's like this surrender and recognition of something greater than us that wishes us
mhm,
well,
mhm,
and also trusting that it knows exactly what to do, where to go, and honoring. And I know that one piece is to that you always have to ask, is it
mhm,
okay?
mhm,
And that does to me speak about sovereignty, because I've had a few different people contact me and say, well, there's this person in my life that's having, they're going through whatever addiction or mental
mhm,
illness, um, and or behaviors that are really not serving them. And can you help me to, do some energy work or something to change them? And I'm like,
mm,
well, the reality is that we're all here we signed up, I believe we signed up for different missions, different challenges, different lessons.
mm,
And even when our intentions are good, choosing to try to intercede in somebody else's path doesn't honor their sovereignty. And one example, when I was in my master's program for counseling psychology, they shared this story of a man watching a butterfly really struggling to get out of the cocoon, and
mhm,
working and working and working and working, and he couldn't take his own personal
mhm.
discomfort with watching this struggle. And he gently cut open the cocoon, and the butterfly came out, and its wings were still kind of mushy, like they,
Mhm,
and he
mhm.
realized, like, oh, like that struggle was really important. And so walking, like he basically killed it, like through
Yeah,
his
yeah,
good
by not
intentions.
allowing it to
And I
strengthen its
think,
wings, yeah.
yeah, and I think this is an interesting um, issue to talk about with sovereignty, with our own sovereignty, with people who are healers. We want to
Mhm,
help. We see somebody struggling, and walking that fine line of when do you step in, and when do you say it's not my business, right? And I'm curious
right.
about how that shows up for you and the work that you do and the people that you serve.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And I love the story about the butterfly, right? Because it's like when we don't have the opportunity to struggle sometimes, like we're not building our strength in whatever way. Um, Yeah, well, the thing I love about Reiki in that sense is it does respect our free will, and it also never does harm. So, like, it literally can't, like, it's life energy. It can't harm you. All it can do is benefit you, but it will not do anything in your system that you're not ready for or that you don't want it to do, right? So yes, absolutely. When I'm sending Reiki, like I always ask for permission. Reiki also is because it knows and it's divinely guided. Like we could be in a group, for example, and I could be doing group Reiki and asking for permission. And the people who give permission, Reiki will flow to them. The people who don't, it knows to respect that, right?
Mhm.
And so that's one thing I love about that, the sort of intelligence that Reiki has, right? But I also love the point about sometimes as healers, we really want to help people. We really, feel like we're here to help. We feel like we like I have something I could offer that could really help you, right? Like and it can be frustrating to kind of sit with like, I have this thing that could really be of benefit, but if the person is not in a place to say yes to that or receive that, right? I think that's part of our journey and our lessons as healers too, is like learning to respect other people's boundaries and our own boundaries as far as just where everybody is in their journey, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's an interesting line to walk, and
Mm-hmm.
trying to remember something that came through that I was gonna say. Hmm. Well, it just left the building.
It'll be back. Maybe it'll be back.
It'll be back, right? Well, I'm curious, what got you into Reiki, and what have you noticed as far as what it's done for you in your
Mm.
life, and how do you work with that energy?
That's a great question. Well, so I was introduced to Reiki when I was attending a Lutheran goddess church in San Francisco. You may have heard of it. It's called Her Church.
Mm-hmm.
Ebenezer Lutheran, but the nickname is Her Church. And there was a group there. Some friends were running Reiki Share, and so I just literally showed up because, like, maybe I had heard of the term Reiki, but I didn't really know what it was, right? So I started going and receiving some of the energy and was like, and I definitely felt it. I was like, oh, this is relaxing, this is warm, this is healing, this is like, I love this. But then when the class was offered, I was like, oh yeah, I'll sign up to do that. um I will say, as far as what it has done for me, practicing Reiki is receiving any way or time that you can receive Reiki is wonderful, right? Because it's gonna be super healing for the whole mind body system. Practicing it, you take it to the next level, because then I feel like it has really asked me to kind of integrate. Well, first of all, when you do the initiations and the attunements, it will clear out a lot of stuff from your system that you don't need, and it sort of raise your vibration a little bit, so that you can hold the vibration of Reiki in your system, right? um and yeah, it has asked me to become more conscious of, like, I have the ability to call in like this healing energy at any time. So, like, what am I doing walking around stressed all the time? Like, it's like you have this gift that is available. And when I share it for others, like I'm doing sessions with clients or with groups or whatever, I'm always like, oh, why do I not give this to myself more often?
Great question.
Right? Yeah. So it's really, I think, a journey of, and like I'll find myself looking forward to a client session, because when you give Reiki, you also receive it.
Yeah.
Right. So then I'll be like, oh, good, I'll be relaxed after that. And then I'm like, Kathleen, like, why don't I
Right.
why don't I give myself a session? I could do that at any time, right?
We are
So
funny little amnesiacs,
I
human.
know, right?
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's an interesting. I've just had a powerful session with a client, and what came through for her was exactly what I needed as well. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
noticed. And
Mm-hmm.
what I remember what I was going to say, or what I was going to mention, is Reiki is one of those things that it is palpable for sure. Not necessarily I mean, if you're really closed off to
Mm-hmm.
feeling energy, then it might not be palpable. But my work, I'm really interested in, not necessarily scientifically proven, because science is really trying to measure the ineffable in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of ways, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not possible. And it continues to change and find itself falling short in a lot of ways. But I do like to really share and practice things that have observable results in my life,
Right. Mm-hmm.
versus, well, I think this would be good for you. I think it's good for me, but I actually have no clue,
Mm-hmm.
because then
Right.
that becomes like just a rote thing, that has no meaning. And there's been so much coming through lately, research about psychic energy and Reiki and healing, that science hasn't wanted to even recognize, because it doesn't align with the scientific brand, and yet
Mm,
science is supposed to be open to whatever, but it
mm-hmm.
is, we are finding that these things that we can't see, and that some people can't necessarily feel, that it actually does have a powerful
Mm-hmm.
impact. And Reiki, for some people who aren't aware, you can do remote things.
Yes.
And you can also work with it in circumstances and send it to places. So and I'd love for you to share if, how that shows up for you. But when I'm meditating, I like to send Reiki to myself in the future for a
Mm,
if I'm going to travel. It's like opening up the road, sending that life force energy, you
mm-hmm.
know, uh, to places and circumstances, and even bank accounts, right?
Mm, I
I don't
love
know. I've
that.
done
I've
it to
never
like
tried
my
that, but
bank
now I
account needs
will.
some life force energy right now. I'm gonna
Yes.
send some on over there. So I'm just curious, some maybe outside the box ways that you have work with Reiki.
Yes. Well, I love this question and sort of the question of like science, like the science of it, right? Um, I have read that there are, in fact, like hospitals around the country that are starting to integrate Reiki or starting to like offer Reiki to their patients, because they've observed, right? Like even if people can't see the energy, which I think there are some individuals out there in the world who can see the energy of Reiki. I'm not one of them. I don't see it, but the hospitals have observed that there is a faster recovery rate for the patients who receive Reiki. That's scientific, right?
Yep.
So that's that observation. But yeah, I love the whole science question because it really gets into like, how does this energy bring about healing? And even on the very physical plane, right? Like when I was first practicing distant Reiki, and that's a whole nother thing for us to wrap our minds around sometimes, right? Is like, wait, I can send Reiki to someone who's really far away, right? The idea is that it's divinely guided, so it's not bound by space or time,
Yeah.
right? Divine intelligence is everywhere and at all times at once. So I used to be living in California. I was starting to practice distant Reiki. I actually did a session with my dad, who was in Maryland at the time, and he was being a good sport. He was like really, just going along and trying to be open to it, right? And afterwards, he told me, he's like, Kathleen, I don't know what you did. My ankle feels so much better today. Like
Mhm.
it was just something really concrete, right? Like his ankle felt better. It was like a physical healing that happened over a distance of 3,000 miles, right? And that's another, like just the whole concept of distant Reiki. It raises that scientific question, right? Of like how our thought and our intention, like literally, I'm sitting there asking divine energy to flow to this person who could be thousands of miles away, or like you said, to a situation, right? And our thought and our intention can send the energy there to where the divine knows that it needs to go, which is like blows my mind kind of every time that I think about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I just love, yeah, and I love like this question because another way that I work with distant Reiki is I have a women's circle membership, and one of our monthly activities is we do a group Reiki healing together.
Nice.
We're on Zoom. So I mean, Reiki is over Zoom, right? Like the Reiki can go reach every person who's on the Zoom call. Not only that, we can record the Zoom call, and the people who couldn't make it live can go back and watch later, and they receive the Reiki and they notice the results, they feel it.
That's
Right?
awesome.
Yeah, so it's across time as well as space, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah. So when physicists like science and talks about like what I've read recently is like quantum entanglement, like physics is starting to notice like a particle, and like I am not, so forgive my lack of scientific, anything here, but like the particle over here can affect the particle over here with zero observable connection between them. I'm like, come to my Reiki share. Like I need
Right.
that, right? Like, please, I will show you quantum entanglement, like,
No
or
doubt.
whatever it is,
No doubt.
like, yeah.
Yeah, I just had an idea. This is based on work that I've done with multidimensional and different timelines, but you can go back and send it to yourself in those times where you're like, why didn't I?
Mm.
Just send it back there.
Yeah, right. Right. Well, could not because I've mostly used it for the future, like when I'm anticipating something, like you said, like, oh, a presentation tomorrow, or I have this thing, travel, or um my personal one of my least favorite things to do is go to the dentist. So I like
Yes,
I send Reiki to me tomorrow in
yes,
the dentist chair, right?
I do too.
Yeah.
And all
And
the
then I
people
feel it,
working on my
right?
mouth.
Yeah, exactly. And then I'm
Mhm.
like more relaxed. I'm like not as anxious,
Yes,
right? When I
yes.
so but the past, I mean, that's a great point too, is that we can do past healing with Reiki.
Yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
that is some work that I've done, not specifically with Reiki, but I'm sure Reiki has played a part of it because I'm sending
Mhm.
energy, but also awareness back to myself. When I was a child, I knew I had special gifts, and
Mm.
there was I didn't have a way of talking about them because they were ineffable, and nobody was talking about that kind of thing. And I opened up a portal to myself in the future because I knew that my future self would have great wisdom about,
Mm,
what
yeah.
would be helpful
Yeah.
for me. And I
Right.
started getting visions of things that I now will have those experiences like, oh, this is one of those times I need to send this back to myself. And
Wow.
so and then a lot of old childhood wounding has been coming up lately, even deeper levels of it. And so
Mhm.
I'm going back to sending energy back to those times
Mm.
with loving energy, could be Reiki,
Mhm.
to support that me that was having those experiences as a young infinite spirit trying to figure out how to manage the human this human reality, and it was
Mhm.
traumatizing,
Yeah.
and like going back and like really loving her up, and that's also work that I think everybody could do even without Reiki. Like we all have love access energy, right?
Yes.
And I'm curious, have you what do you feel about people that aren't initiated into Reiki
Mhm.
asking for that help? Is there still something
Yeah.
available to them? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, my understanding is that Reiki is one frequency of
Mm,
divine energy, right? It's like one particular frequency that we can, or there's, I mean, might be a spectrum of Reiki
yeah,
frequencies, right?
yeah,
But a category maybe. But yeah, it's a type of energy we can call on, but certainly like we all have access because we're divine beings, we're spiritual beings, right? Having a human experience. So we can certainly call on our own greater connection, right? To source, to our own wisdom, and to that. I love how you said like sending loving energy, right?
yeah,
The loving energy that we all have access to at any time. And that's one thing that I feel like Reiki has really taught me is like it's available anytime, anywhere, right? And doesn't, even if you're not attuned to Reiki, like your own access to source and to love, like infinite love, is available anytime, anywhere, right?
yeah.
And I actually love that you brought up sending visions or information to your past self that you had asked for as a child. That's like super cool. Because one other thing that came up for me as I was thinking about this conversation was, um, yeah, like several like moments when I feel like I've had like visions of something, I have a vision of something at, one particular time. And then I will actually come to that physical place in the world later, right? And I hadn't been there before. So it's kind of this like premonition, right? Or this, dream, like maybe a dream or something. Um, and I have had those experiences to the point where I've kind of like just a couple times in my life, but I've found myself in a new physical location and looked around and been like, wait, I had a dream about that. Like I've never been here before, but it was like that exact place, that exact thing. Or like I had a vision about that, like in my meditation, like
Yeah.
10 years ago. Right. So what does that mean? I mean, is that, sometimes I don't know how significant the particular place is, but there have been times when I've been like, oh, this was significant. And that's why I had a vision about it 10 years ago. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
And
yeah.
also time is so relative, and in the
Mm-hmm,
third
mm-hmm.
dimension, we deal with time linearly, which is weird.
Yeah.
When we know it's actually infinite. So it's like we're through third dimensional beings treating time as a two-dimensional experience when we know it's infinite. So whatever,
Mm-hmm.
like these deja vu, it just none of it makes sense. Even
Mm-hmm.
just how I described it, and then wrapping our brains, our third dimensional brains around infinite time,
Right.
that's why we're able to, like, when we have ceremonies and people sign up, we often say, like, the moment that your sovereign choice was, I'm going to be in ceremony, be ready, because that you're making that sovereign invitation, very much like Reiki, from
Mm-hmm.
this medicine to
Right.
assist you. And it's not going to wait until you're sitting in ceremony, nor will it finish when you're done with ceremony. So, like, be ready. And we
Mm-hmm.
so often, it seemed to have helped people, like, oh, that was so helpful because all these things happened, all these shifts, and I was able to recognize it was things were moving already.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we could talk forever about this stuff. I love to geek out about it.
Yeah.
And it's time has flown, and I'm curious, how can people stay connected with you? Do you offer Reiki healing? Do you do Reiki, um, uh, what are they called? Empowerments, initiation,
Oh, like the Juma. Yes. Uh-huh.
attunements. Yes, I totally lost the name. Do you offer that, and how can people stay connected and learn more about you?
I do. Thanks, Amanda. So first of all, my website is bridgetsflame.org. And that's, that has sort of all my work up there, from the women's circles to the Reiki to the spiritual direction. I am also on Facebook. So maybe we can post
Yeah.
that link with this video. But in fact, the thing that I do have coming up on Friday, March 10th, I have a free informational call about my Reiki practitioner trainings. So I'm going to have a couple of training dates this year, which is really an initiation, right? As we've been using the word initiation. But yeah, and that informational call is free, and people can come and find out about it. And on that call, you actually receive a group Reiki healing for clarity, so you can discern kind of your next steps personally and professionally.
I love it.
So yeah.
Oh. Well, that sounds lovely, and I encourage everybody who's tuning in to take you up on it. Sounds amazing, and I really appreciate you coming and bringing your wisdom and your experiences. And I know, I just will say, I get your newsletters, and I know that you're up to really amazing things, and that you have a beautiful community of folks who are doing good things in the world, and that you're inspiring a lot of good. And so,
Mhm.
please reach out, connect with Kathleen Joan, and get on her Reiki wave boat.
Wavelength vibration.
Yeah, get on there. It's
Love it.
really good stuff. And again, yeah, thank you. And thank you to each of you for tuning in. I had somebody say, I often call myself the quicker waker upper, and somebody
Mhm.
misheard and said, quicker picker upper. I don't know what that means. Quicker waker upper.
The picker upper
Not
is the commercial, right? That's a commercial for something else.
no paper towels, but we are here to wake people up
Yes,
with your consent. If
of
you're
course.
interested in that, Kathleen Jones got you. I got you. And thanks for tuning in, everybody. Until next time, may the
Mhm.
source be with you.